Welcome to the podcast, where we dive into some of the most shadowy intersections of power. Today, we're taking a deep look at the undercurrents linking intelligence agencies and organized crime, a narrative that stretches back from World War II through to the modern era of figures like Epstein.
Yeah, it's a tangled web, isn't it? The way secret operations, mobsters, and intelligence have worked hand in hand.
Exactly. It's like one of those intricate puzzles where every piece seems to reveal a hidden agenda. The material here from Whitney Webb's One Nation Under Blackmail paints that picture vividly.
Absolutely. And it starts with historical events like Operation Underworld. Who would have thought that during the early 1940s, the Office of Naval Intelligence actually recruited mobsters like Lucky Luciano to help secure ports?
Right. That whole operation, triggered by the Normandy fire, led to the government reluctantly embracing organized crime figures. There's this ironic twist, using criminals to fight sabotage. I mean, it's like blatant pragmatism wrapped in secrecy.
And it's fascinating how that arrangement not only helped in the war, but later evolved into alliances that frankly seem to blur ethical boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. For instance, after the war, the very same relationship morphed into networks that allowed these figures to funnel money into, legitimate sectors like real estate and banking, while keeping the criminal activities under wraps.
I'm curious, though. Do you think that these kinds of covert collaborations set a precedent for modern cases like the Epstein scandal? It seems like the idea of protection and blackmail has been evolving, yet the roots are the same.
Precisely. Epstein's case appears to be a modern corollary, a byproduct of that age-old system. The narrative details how intelligence, mob networks, and financial elites converge. It's almost like, the dark water never really cleared.
And speaking of convergences, the document gets into the intricate details of money laundering, how offshore banks and even family names like the Pritzkers play into it. That part really jumps out as a modern extension of these alliances, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, take Castle Bank and Trust, for example. It's shown to be more than just a financial institution. It's a conduit for laundering money from drug trafficking, tax evasion, and even blackmail operations.
For sure. And when you see the Pritzker connection, it almost challenges the notion that these networks are wholly separate from mainstream power structures. Isn't that something?
Yes, indeed. It's like the more you dig, the more you see these overlapping circles. The investment in hotels, casinos, and real estate, they aren't just random business ventures. They're part of a system that simultaneously finances illicit activities while bolstering legitimate enterprises.
Yeah. Now, one curious aspect is the explicit mention of how intelligence operatives even used methods like blackmail and honey traps as strategic tools. That's really unsettling.
Absolutely. It's disturbing. The notion that intelligence isn't only about gathering data, but also about using personal vulnerabilities as leverage. It shows a chilling side of power dynamics, and it makes you wonder about the current state of affairs, doesn't it?
It sure does. Though I have to say, sometimes I'm a bit skeptical, maybe too skeptical, about drawing too direct a line between historical secret operations and today's political scandals. What do you think?
I get that, and it's a healthy pause. However, the evidence here suggests that the structure of using covert blackmail and secret alliances has deep historical roots. It's not to say that every contemporary event is a mirror image, but the modus operandi feels consistent across decades.
That's a fair point. It's like recognizing a sort of blueprints for power, one that's been evolving. And speaking of evolution, the connection between the drug trade and upscale legit investments is mind-blowing.
Yeah, exactly. The discussion on how proceeds from the global drug trade might have even influenced stock market valuations, like those estimates of billions invoking offshore mechanisms, really underscores the scale we're talking about.
Absolutely. And to think cartel and mob money ending up as capital in real estate and corporate finance, it's almost like, different worlds colliding.
Yes, and it's not just about money, it's about power control. The narrative shows that these financial flows help maintain a corrupt elite that can subvert public institutions and even national security structures.
One striking detail is the role of the intelligence agencies themselves. The document suggests that the CIA and even later the FBI turned a blind eye or actively protected these financial channels, all in the name of national security.
Exactly. It's like they set up a double-edged sword. On one side, they're working on covert operations against external foes, and on the other, they're entangled with organized crime to secure their operations. The justification always revolves around protection of national interests.
Yeah. And that's where things get really murky, as if the more you peel back, the less you know where the real boundaries lie between lawful government actions and criminal collusion.
Precisely. Another thing that's fascinating and a bit jarring is how this history is interwoven with cultural icons. We see mentions of Hollywood, entertainment moguls, and even political dynasties that on the surface appear to be strictly legitimate. It's, almost cinematic in scope.
Right. And it makes you reflect on how so-called respectable sectors of society might actually be underwritten by these covert networks. I mean, who would have thought that the same players helping spin a Hollywood narrative were also part of clandestine money laundering operations?
Exactly. And it leads to the critical question, how do we as a society hold such power structures accountable when their influence extends so far into both public and private realms?
Yeah. That's the million-dollar question. There's this implicit idea that truth and transparency are continually stifled by these shadow networks. And when revelations come out, like with Epstein, it's almost too little, too late.
True. And speaking of Epstein, the book makes it clear that his operations were not an isolated aberration, but rather the latest iteration in a series of practices that have been ongoing for almost a century. It's like a continuation of the same dark legacy.
Right, exactly. It's both alarming and fascinating to see how historic practices are repackaged for new generations. But I also wonder, isn't there a risk that such narratives become overly conspiratorial, possibly overshadowing other factors?
That's a fair critique. I mean, while the evidence for overlapping networks is compelling, we have to avoid overly reductionist explanations. There are, of course, myriad factors at work in global finance and political power. Still, the historical connections here are hard to ignore.
Absolutely. It's a balancing act, recognizing genuine patterns without slipping into overgeneralization.
Right. And the sheer volume of information, covering everything from World War II-era sabotage to modern offshore banking, demands rigorous investigation. The book challenges readers to confront uncomfortable truths about how power is consolidated and maintained.
Yeah. And it's almost poetic in its ambition. The narrative weaves together intelligence, crime, political influence, and even cultural shifts. Not every reader may agree with every assertion, but it certainly forces you to question accepted narratives.
Exactly. The book dares us to rethink historical events in the light of these covert alliances. And while some parts might seem speculative, the corroborated evidence from multiple sources gives weight to its claims.
It does raise the stakes for re-examining how we define national security and integrity in our institutions. If those in power are, in effect, built on a foundation of, well, criminality and collusion, what does that mean for democracy?
That's a question that keeps haunting us. And it also shows us that the struggle against corruption is not just about catching individuals, it's about dismantling an entire system where secrets are currency and blackmail is a tool of governance.
Right. As we wrap up, it's clear that the legacy of these alliances continues to cast a long, dark shadow. Whether you see it as an inevitable byproduct of power or as a deliberate conspiracy, the interconnectedness of intelligence, organized crime, and financial elites is undeniable.
Absolutely. It's like peeling back layers of an onion. Each layer reveals more complexity and corruption, and in understanding that, we might just be able to start demanding the transparency and accountability our institutions so desperately need.
Well said. Thanks for this deep dive into such a multifaceted and provocative topic. It really forces us to re-examine the hidden networks that continue to shape our world.
Thanks for joining the conversation. Until next time, keep questioning and stay engaged.